everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Trending Echoes, brought to you by Trends Research and Advisory. I'm your host, Omar, and we are here at COP28 in the beautiful Expo City of Dubai. We're also joined today by a very special guest. He is the CEO of Farmin, Dr. Ali El Hamadi. Welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you for having me here.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, very interested to have this talk with you. So the first thing I wanted to know is the following. You've managed to combine artificial intelligence and satellites or satellite imagery. What does that mean? What have you combined? What do you generate out of that combination?
Typically, the idea that we had was essentially to look at, people are usually familiar with the satellite imagery through GPS and Google Maps and these things, right? But there is quite good amount of information hidden within the layers of satellite imagery itself. So you can find quite good amount of information. And while people typically think of it in terms of the visible Google RGB style, there is actually quite good amount of invisible kind of information you can find through thermal, radar, and many other layers within it. The idea that we had was essentially if we combined all of these bands through the satellite imagery and develop some sort of correlations through artificial intelligence, then we should be able to find good amount of analytics and insights for different kind of industries. And using all of these insights, we can provide them to decision makers, where now they can make an appropriate and informed decision about the status that they are supposed to follow.
Now, you're talking about thermal images and things like that. I think I saw something similar to that with the latest telescope that was released into space. What's the name of it? Do you know?
Hubble telescope.
Hubble, correct.
True.
Which works in a very similar way as well. Does that also combine artificial intelligence?
And that one, they actually look at it slightly differently, because when you look at Hubble telescope, you are looking at some of the bands that are typically not visible. You can convert it either directly through remote sensing, or you can do what they call false color correction, which essentially means that there are stuff that are not seen and you want to display it, and we can only display it in the traditional RGB style. So that's how you get all of these beautiful pictures.
Right. Now, also I wanted to ask, how does all of this connect to sustainability?
When you look at it, typically we look at what kind of information decision makers and high officials typically look for. And this depends on whether you are seeking a particular information that is relevant to that particular industry, or whether it is more around resource allocation and resource management, as well as, of course, predictive maintenance. Let's say we talk about maritime, right? And for marine, I can look at it from different angles. One is I can monitor all the environmental aspects of marine. So I can look at what is the salinity of the water, where are the nutrients within the water, right? And so this way I can tell where are the fisheries, right? So I can monitor these areas. On the other side, look at things that might create some harm for me. So this includes, for example, oil spill, right?
Right.
So this way, using satellite imagery and artificial intelligence, what we can do is as soon as there is a change in the way that the light is being reflected, which is what they call spectral signature, then I can detect that there is some oil being spilled here, right? And then based on this, I can also detect some additional information that are relevant. One is, what is the density of that oil? Is that a heavy oil where now it will create some problem for me and create a problem for the entire region? So all of these kind of information are really important for the environment and really important for sustainability. If we want to take it a step further, then what you can do with some data fusion is you can actually identify the source of where the oil spill came from.
To that point, you can go that far.
Yes, you can.
With satellite imagery, you can tell, first of all, the fact that you can actually identify that it's oil as opposed to anything else blows my mind away, but to also tell where that oil came from?
You can actually. So the idea here is you can do a couple of things. One, you can monitor the ships in the entire region, right, all around it. And so you know exactly which ship was where across the entire path.
Sure.
That's one. Then the other side of it is you can actually backtrack in terms of what we call hydrodynamic model. So hydrodynamics modeling is essentially as the water move, if you put something on a particular location, it will disperse across the region,
Sure.
right? So by kind of backtracking, you can identify where the source came from. And so combining different kind of technology will allow you to essentially know where is the source and essentially figure out whether this is a sustainability issue that you need
Sure.
to tackle or not.
Now, you also spoke to me a little bit earlier about something called precision fertilizing, where using satellites or satellite imagery, you can get as granular as trying to understand what sort of fertilization is there, how much is needed, and so on. Tell us a little bit more about how that works.
So essentially for agriculture, there is quite good amount of information that's needed, right? And that's actually where our name comes from, Farmin.
Farmin, yes.
So when we started we started around agriculture, and we wanted to gain more insight around what is happening around it. So if we look at agriculture, then there is, first I want to know which crop is this one, right? Because depending on which crop it is, it will require different kind of fertilization, it will require different kind of water, and then it will be suspect to different kind of disease. And then, of course, each one of them has its own crop cycle. So the first one is I need to identify which crop is this one, and we can use artificial intelligence and satellite imagery to tell us based on spectral signature which crop is this one. Once you have known now that this is the crop, then you can find information that are relevant to in general. So you can find how much water is on the soil, which we call soil moisture. You can find the soil nutrients, which is how much nitrogen, how much potassium, how much phosphorus is on the ground. Then you can find also how much evaporation is coming from the ground through thermal imagery.
Right.
And then you can, combining all of these, combining the wind, the humidity, the dust, and many other meteorological data, now you can essentially detect that one, is this crop healthy? Because we can monitor how much chlorophyll is in it,
Sure.
right? But then if it is not healthy, then you can identify what is the most likely reason of why this is not healthy. Is it because there is low water compared to how much is really needed? Is it because there is lacking of nitrogen or potassium and so on? And then by doing this, now you can go to that particular crop, then that particular region, and you can do exactly, if it is lacking nitrogen, then I can provide you with a fertilizer that is highly concentrated in nitrogen and so on. The good thing about this is you can actually do it for entire regions and provide a report for entire region very, very fast and continuously.
You mentioned you can tell how much chlorophyll is there as well?
True.
How do you do that through understanding how much photosynthesis is taking place, for example? How do you get that granular is what I'm trying to understand.
So essentially the idea here is more around understanding what is happening in that particular plant, right? So if we look at the amount of chlorophyll, then what you are trying to look at is chlorophyll typically absorb particular bands and reflect some other bands.
Right.
And so if I look at every individual band, which and I know that it is absorbing this much of red, it's reflecting this much of near infrared, it's reflecting this much of green, and so on, then I can tell essentially how much chlorophyll is in that particular one.
Understood. Very fascinating. I love hearing about this stuff. Now, through this technology, you're also able to track greenhouse emissions as well. How do you identify that part? Is it also based on thermal imagery or other technologies? So when we look at, for example, red color, right? And if I see a red color, then what is happening here, it's the sunlight has touched that area, and then that area has already absorbed the blue and the green, right? But then it reflected the red. And so I can measure all of these absorption, and I can automatically identify that this is a red. It's the same idea to the chlorophyll that I was just mentioning, but it's also the same idea for methane. So for methane, typically what is happening is this is happening around what we call shortwave near infrared or SWIR band. And in that particular region, if you look at the normal RGB, nothing is happening, so you cannot detect it. But if you look at that particular region, you can see a lot of absorption is happening around these specific bands around that particular region. And so by having a satellite that is able to capture how much absorption is happening of this particular region,
we can convert it essentially to analytics and insights. So these kind of insights will first, again, similar to the case of the maritime, you can combine the source of all of these emissions along with some wind, dust, humidity, and some other information. And then you can essentially forecast where is one you can predict where is the source, but also you can forecast how it will disperse over time, essentially.
Amazing. Now, what are you doing as Farmin here at COP28? What sort of presence do you guys have here? What are you trying to achieve or get out of it?
Essentially, we had the privilege along and invited mainly by UAE Space Agency to provide a lot of our expertise around remote sensing, artificial driven analytics. All of these, of course, what we wanted to do is educate and mainly educate around the possibilities that we can generate by combining satellite imagery and artificial intelligence. And so we had a couple of workshops, couple of sessions, couple of presentations where we were essentially showcasing particular cases. So on the first day, we had a specific scope around agriculture. On the next day, we had more focus around urban planning. On another day, we had specific focus around greenhouse gas monitoring and detection. So the idea that we had is one, to essentially educate. But then what we were also hoping to gain out of this is the location where government officials are here, NGOs are also here, but also startups. And what we are trying to do is first learn from other startups about the technology that they have and that we can use to complement our solution. But then also hoping to work along with governments and NGOs to either collaborate by getting some data from them, which are typically really important for us to validate our results, but hopefully also to support first in understanding what is the direction that they have so we can align ourselves, but also to look at possibilities of collaboration. And so far we have been successful in some of these aspects. And so we are hoping that this will continue throughout the entire COP.
That's amazing. Now, I feel like I should know the answer to this, but does the UAE have its own satellites launched?
Yes, actually. So Hamadi bin Rashid Space Center, they are typically the one leading all of these satellite development. The main one that is most relevant to us is a satellite called Khalifa-Sat.
Okay.
And Khalifa-Sat is capable of capturing around 70 centimeter accuracy or 70 centimeter resolution. So 70 centimeter is slightly lower than what you see in Google Earth, but it's quite valuable.
It's slightly lower quality.
It's slightly lower quality
than what you see on Google Earth.
On Google, because Google Earth, they have another kind of satellite that they are using, but still it's higher in terms of some other spectral information that's providing.
Such as?
Essentially looking at where are the bands that they are covering. So in Google Earth, you only see the RGB, but then in Khalifa-Sat, you get more information around the bands.
Is Khalifa-Sat built here in the UAE?
Khalifa-Sat actually was one of the first satellites that was built entirely here in UAE.
Wow.
And now they have a new satellite, which is called the MBZ sat. That one will be even more powerful. First, more powerful than, or almost as powerful as Google Earth imagery. Right. But then also it's higher quality in terms of the speed, in terms of processing, and in terms of others. And I believe it will be launched very soon.
Now, I don't mean to deviate too far from your area of expertise, but I'm also fascinated by all things space, right? How do you launch all these satellites into space without having them run into each other or crash with each other? Do you understand what I mean? Because it seems that, do we know how many satellites are in space as we speak?
That's a tough question to ask. It depends, because there are a couple of reasons for this. One is there is the traditional satellite that are launched and well known. Everybody know them. There is an entire directory with all of the information around them. But then there are some other hidden satellites, typically either used for special kind of communication or military applications.
Sure.
And so all of these satellites are typically unknown.
Okay.
even the technical specifications of these satellites are typically hidden.
What sort of collaboration is there right now with trends, or maybe even future types of collaborations between both entities?
As of now, we have just started the collaboration. Essentially, the idea is first to rely on trends, on the expertise, the knowledge that you guys have, and hopefully we can learn on where are the demands and essentially the strategies of different locations.
Excellent. And any final words you would have for our viewers or listeners? Any message that Dr. Ali Al Hamadi would like to get out?
Well, first, thank you a lot for having me here today. It's a pleasure always to be here at
Likewise.
COP28. Second is, even if we hide information on the ground, which a lot of countries do, the space is there to reveal it all.
I love it.
What we are trying to do is, first is to educate that this aspect is actually there. And second is we should be all working together so that we can achieve the targets that are set by COP28.
Absolutely. Dr. Very exciting news. I want to take a moment and congratulate you on the latest award that you guys have earned, which was, I believe, from Future 100, that recognizes the top enterprises and top SMEs. Congratulations on that. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, we are thankful first to the Ministry of Economy for selecting us for the Future 100. Essentially, the idea that they had is to bring 100 futuristic company and to support them and to drive them to be a real part of the ecosystem here. It's a great opportunity and it's a great honor to be part of the selected 100, especially that it's the first cycle. So this definitely, there was more competition around it this time. The idea that they had and that we will benefit definitely from is they will support first understanding on the business side of things, how things are done. I come purely from technological side, so it's sometimes very difficult to understand the business aspect. So they will be providing us with different kind of workshop, business development opportunities, but then also they will provide us with directions, alignment, as well as different kind of grants and funding that will be supporting our journey, hopefully to a unicorn status and to a regional impact as well.
Sounds good. We look for the day where we hear the announcement of Farmin being one of the top unicorns to come out of the region. Doctor, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you being here at the studio, and we look forward to having you once again. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That was another episode of Trending Echoes right here at COP28 in the beautiful Expo City. I was your host, Omar, and we'll see you in the next episode.